CB, MF, Productions.
Oops, you have to put the CD up your ass.
What is up, everyone? I am CBN Productions, and today is just... it's a video, alright. It's currently like 1 a.m. in the morning, and honestly, I just felt like talking to a camera. It's just one of those moods I'm in right now, and I have some thoughts on the MCU, I guess. You know, I built this channel on Marvel stuff, so I want to just talk about some Marvel shit. Also, by the way, I felt like being a little productive because a couple months back I was hanging out with some friends, and one of my friends knocked over, I have a punching bag set over there, and it knocked over my Daily Bugle Lego sets that I displayed, and I'm very sad that it got destroyed in the process. You can see only like the bottom half remained. It's standing on top of a 2 feet Wii Fit balance boards. I don't even know why I have one, let alone two. I don't even own a copy of Wii Fit. I don't think I've ever owned Wii Fit, so I don't know. So I felt like just trying to assemble this while just talking about the MCU in some way, shape, or form, just bullshitting. So I don't know, let's just get into it. You mind helping me out, Jenna? Can you help me out? Okay, fuck you two then. Alright, I think a big issue, personally, with the MCU currently... well, I mean, the thing about the MCU right now is that a lot of people are complaining about it, especially after Ant-Man came out, and people are talking about how it's failing, and that the superhero genre is dying as a whole because of also with Shazam. People that are saying that type of stuff, that believe that the superhero genre is dead and in the water, I think those are just people that just want the superhero genre to die. I certainly do not think that the superhero genre is dead in any way, shape, or form. I mean, looking at the upcoming slate of films we have for both Marvel and DC or whatever, listen, the superhero genre is far from dead. And just because a couple of mediocre movies came out and did not so good is mainly just because of the quality of the films themselves. But getting on the topic of the MCU kind of losing its hot streak recently with Phase 4 and beginning of Phase 5, one of my biggest issues I have with the MCU, and one that really inspired me to make this video personally, is the fact that the MCU just isn't maturing, it's not growing up. You know, the biggest thing, I made a whole video about this, with so many shows and projects coming out in Phase 4 and Phase 5 and beyond, you know, the audience is required to basically watch every single project to get the entire picture. Now, granted, it's not like every single project requires you to watch everything in Phase 4. I mean, hell, most of Phase 4 is basically its own standalone story. Like, every project didn't really tie in much to one another. But knowing the fact they're all going to converge at some point one another with Secret Wars makes you kind of obligated to still continue to watch everything, at least people like me that are still watching the MCU and all the stuff that is coming out with it. But one of the biggest things that I've really seen is the fact that the projects themselves have not really matured or changed much since the ending of Endgame. And I think that's a big issue. I made a whole video about the structure and what you have to watch to understand the MCU now, and there's so much more shit that you have to watch in the MCU versus what you have to watch with the Infinity Saga, right? Because back in the Infinity Saga, they were just movies. There was not really much you had to watch outside of that. Yes, there were shows, but they really weren't tied into anything regardless with the movies. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil, all that type of stuff. That was just separate. That was just extended canon stuff. But now stuff like Daredevil is kind of canon in the MCU, with Charlie Cox coming back and Vincent D'Onofrio and John Bernthal and all them coming back into the fold. And yes, you could say, well, I mean, Daredevil's the Netflix of, and all the Defenders shit might not be canon. They might just make their own thing. And you could say that, but I mean, seeing Daredevil in No Way Home and She-Hulk, you wouldn't get that reaction if you hadn't understood the Netflix series and didn't get the meaning behind that casting. I mean, how they even played the Daredevil theme in She-Hulk.
So, are you like a superhero? Like the Gold Devil?
The fuck you say to me?
And so I still think, like, regardless of whether they make these shows actual 616 canon or not, they're still kind of required viewing. And, you know, we definitely know that everything with Spider-Man is canon, with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Venom and all that is still very tied together. And we definitely know the X-Men stuff is to be canon with Deadpool 3 coming out. And we already have gotten Evan Peters and Patrick Stewart back in the MCU in some way, shape, or form. And with all the amount of shit you have to watch now we're getting the MCU, the fact that it's mostly adults like me who have grown up with the MCU that are kind of benefiting from not having to catch up with every single project in the MCU from 2008 onwards to understand what's going to happen in Secret Wars and the King Dynasty going forward. You know, back when I was 10 years old, I only had to watch like 5 movies to understand the first Avengers movie when I saw it in theaters. If I was a 10-year-old now, I would have to watch 31 movies in the MCU, And right now we're just counting Marvel Studios stuff. So 31 movies from Iron Man to Ant-Man 3. You have to watch, what, 8 shows on Disney Plus, 2 specials. I guess you can throw I Am Groot in there, but it doesn't really matter. Plus you have to watch all the Spider-Man stuff with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Venom 1 and 2, and Morbius. I mean, Morbius is kind of like up in the air, but it still ties itself to the MCU. You also have the Fox X-Men films now with Evan Peters and Patrick Stewart, and with Deadpool 3 coming out. And God knows how many other projects that you have to watch to understand the MCU. I mean, shit, I won't be surprised if they bring back Chris Evans' Fantastic Four, or, you know, Ben Affleck Daredevil, or Thomas Strange Punisher. God knows how many other characters, Wesley Snipes Blade. And so with the amount of shit you have to watch to understand the MCU now, I don't understand why they aren't tying in to the adults more, and they really are keeping their projects the same quality as they were, or I'm saying like the same tone as they were pre-Infinity Saga, in my opinion. And to me, not only in universe but also outside the universe in our reality, I think that the MCU has a different light on it now. I mean, in universe, I mean, the fucking Thanos snap happened and the world disappeared for 5 years, or half of the population disappeared for 5 years, and seeing the snippets we got of Endgame really showed how depressed that world was after the whole Thanos snap happened. And to me personally, one of my biggest issues with the MCU in Phase 4 and in Phase 5 so far, they really haven't touched much upon the actual like 5-year gap in the blip, right? And the very few things we have touched upon it, I really enjoyed, like the opening scene of the Hawkeye, or one of the opening episodes of Hawkeye where like Yelena disappeared for 5 years. That was a really haunting scene in my opinion. And to me, it's like I really want to have a more darker side of the MCU that really just explored how the world worked with half his population gone. Like personally, I pitched an idea to a couple of my friends about this, but like with the amount of shit that Disney Plus is throwing on there, it doesn't really have to like tie into the Kang Dynasty or whatever. But I would love to see like an anthology series about the blip. Like you would have like essentially like multiple episodes where like we would just focus on like one random person on the world that was in a position of power, or something that was like important that was going on during the blip. Like when when the Thanos snap happened, like I would love to see like an episode, like imagine like an episode where like, you know, they're at a power plant and like the head engineer just disappears out of nowhere, and like it turns like the opening scene of the Chernobyl HBO show where it's like mad chaos and people who were like lower rung have to like lead this power plant having to function it right, or else, you know, it will cause like this like disastrous consequences like another Chernobyl. Or you have like an episode dedicates like the pilots of an airplane disappearing and like people stuck on an airplane that like don't know what to do because the pilots are gone, and now no one with any sort of like, you know, aviation skills has to like try to save this plane before it crashes, or something like that. To me, that would really explore the MCU in a way that would feel mature, as well as just really expanding upon it, because I still have many questions on what that would actually look like in the world of the MCU, not just like having people just look depressed and like not picking up their trash on the fucking sidewalk. I don't know, to me that was just very underdeveloped in Endgame in my opinion. Like the thing about the MCU, the amount of comedy they've had in their projects recently is really annoying in my opinion. And again, it just dedicates to the fact that it makes me feel old watching these movies and shows nowadays, because they start gearing themselves towards 13-year-olds and under, when again they're the ones that are not benefiting from all this type of stuff because they have to catch up with so much shit. And hell, I don't even think most of them can watch everything because of Deadpool coming out. It's like, to me, it's like I wish they would actually just talk about more mature things and like really like explore more mature themes than just talk like joking about cancer or Torquay with Megan Thee Stallion. You know, it's just like so many projects recently have just focused on the comedy, and the same bag of tricks that we've seen before, but I think because of the context of just this phase of 4 and 5 just being so muddled and messy, and the fact that it's just like, as a person who's grown up with the MCU, I kind of wanted to mature a little bit. I genuinely want them to change in the ways that the audience is changing. Again, like the audience is not the same that it was back in 2008. You are with a completely different set of people that are dedicated fans, and I think again dedicating yourself to those fans, not just exclusively, but I would have an overall, I think it would be more mature. There are certain mature projects in Phase 4. I mean, certainly Wakanda Forever, but that was mainly just because, you know, someone actually passed away, and so they couldn't just joke about things non-stop. You know what I'm saying? And there are a couple of projects coming up that I'm looking forward to that are a little bit more mature, like Secret Invasion. I'm glad it's having more of like a, you know, Winter Soldier as thriller tone. Guardians 3 is certainly going to be a more emotional journey for our Guardians because they're sending them off in a nice way, hopefully. But just a lot of the projects that are just coming out, I feel like just aren't really going to hit the same. And I feel like they're just going to kind of fall under the same blunder as just so many other projects in Phase 4, like She-Hulk and, you know, just What If or whatever. It's just like, again, there are so many things about this phase of the MCU coming up that I'm just not like really looking forward to. And a lot of people are pointing towards, you know, they fired one of the executives and, you know, they're gonna make everything better, they're gonna spread their projects out. And although yes, that is a good thing, we're not really gonna see that for a couple of years, because mind you, a lot of the projects coming up right now, or gonna be coming up for the next like year and a half, are stuff that was greenlit and produced under the Bob Chapek era of Disney before Bob Iger took over. So stuff like Echo and Ironheart and Agatha and all that type of stuff, it could be good, and I'll most likely will watch it and like it, but it's just like, that's not the same. I won't get the same level of hype from those projects as I will be like with Fantastic Four or Blade or Deadpool 3 or, you know, even stuff like Armor Wars, because I want to see Don Cheadle lead a movie in the MCU. Just those projects just interest me a lot more, and they're so far away. I don't know, I just want to see these projects be more mature and really explore these themes. Themes that I think would resonate more with an adult audience. Again, I think the MCU should not shy away from more adult themes. Like a Midnight Suns movie, I would love to see an R-rated Midnight Suns movie. I would love to see an R-rated Blade movie. Like, I know people will give me like the John Campea argument of being like, just because it's R-rated doesn't mean it makes it automatically good. And yeah, that is fair, but it's like, oh, I almost bumped that. But I mean, mind you, Blade is a half vampire. Vampires are bloodsuckers. When you can't show blood because it's a PG-13 movie, you're kind of kill the entire concept. I mean, have you seen The Invitation that came out a few months ago? Like, it's a prime example of like PG-13 vampire movies just don't resonate the same as like R-rated vampire movies. And I don't know, it's like stuff like that. Moon Knight I also have a big issue with, because although I did enjoy the series, the whole darker tone aesthetic, you know, of it being about somebody with DID and struggling with that mental illness, and then them just turning into a giant kaiju fight by the end, it's just like, it's not the fact that it's a comic book storyline, they're going comic book, you know, they're taking comic book elements with it. It's the fact that it's drowning out the more serious elements with just cartoony stuff that, to me, again, as someone who's grown up with the MCU now as an adult, it just doesn't hit the same anymore. And there's just certain other projects I really do want to see take a more mature turn. Doesn't mean that everything has to be bleak and dour and sad and melodramatic. It's the fact that I just want these projects and these characters to age up more. Like Thor is a giant example that I've already mentioned previously in this video, but he's a character that was so well done in Infinity War, and then both in Endgame and Love and Thunder, they really just dropped the ball with him and just turned into a joke, which in the state of his mind right now and the state of his character after this amount of stuff that has happened to him in the past like few years in the MCU, he shouldn't be acting like that. Like no regular being, I get he's a god, but like no being would just act like a goofball in times where he lost so many people close to him in only a short amount of time in his long lifespan. I don't know, it's just frustrating to me because I genuinely want the MCU to take different routes, to take more risks with their content instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Again, we live in a new era where we've seen Marvel do it all. We've seen them succeed with their Infinity Saga. We've seen them do leaps and bounds what they did with their superhero plan. But now we're introducing so many characters and so many different storylines. It's the fact that they're just not really changing their actual formula to anything, and they've gotten complacent and they've just gotten stuck just doing the same thing over and over again. And to me, it's just like they have so much opportunity and room to grow as a creative head of a franchise, and the fact that I just feel like they just don't know what they're doing right now. And it's frustrating because I do love the MCU and I don't want to feel like an old man that's out of touch. And the sad thing is they probably won't do it. Sure, there are examples like Deadpool 3 that people will point me towards and be like, well, see, they are making an R-rated movie. But the fact is that the only reason why Deadpool 3 is in the green light stage and the reason why it's still going to be rated R is because the first two movies were rated R, and that wasn't under Disney, that was under Fox. And, you know, don't forget the fact that Disney tried releasing a PG-13 cut of Deadpool 2, and that didn't really do that well. So they were like, okay, we can't really do a PG-13 Deadpool, but we can't just like not do another Deadpool movie because we're literally just gonna burn money by not doing that. So we're gonna have to tie it into the MCU at some point. And so I just felt like Disney were just kind of backed into a corner, and we're kind of just forced to make Deadpool 3 because That's because it was printing money. You know, an already proven, previously established IP getting another R-rated installment is not the same as, like, you know, them greenlighting an R-rated Blade movie, for example, right? Or like an R-rated Midnight Suns movie, or an R-rated Ghost Rider movie. And again, I want them, Disney as a whole and Marvel, to really just take more risks with their characters. And the sad thing is they probably won't, because they're always gonna be tied to merchandise and sales and toys and all that type of stuff, because those kids that buy all that stuff, and, you know, adults as well, that's their driving force between these movies, is the merchandise, the sales, the tickets. And it's like, you know, you don't want to you don't want to alienate your audience if you want to get widespread appeal. And that's the thing. It's just like Marvel as a whole has been so much about get the broadest audience possible, without realizing that their core audience that has stuck around since 2008 are grown up now. They are adults. They probably have their own kids. And it's just like, I don't know. To me, I might be saying a lot of selfish things with this video, but it's just like, I just want the MCU to do better. I want them to really take a different route and to really just explore the characters in a deeper way. I'm sorry, it's really late. I'm just spitballing random shit on here. After seeing Ant-Man and really seeing the fact that the Marvel formula cracks are really starting to seem, and they've been cracking for a couple years at this point. Like, they really haven't had a whole lot of highs recently, and I don't know. I really do hope that the underperformance of Ant-Man really is a rude awakening for the studio, and really showing that they can't just do the same thing over and over and over again. They really have to, like, take more risks with their content and really just go all out with their characters. Like, for example, Multiverse of Madness. I wanted them to make a true horror movie in the MCU. Although they had snippets of a horror movie, they had definitely, Sam Raimi had his hand on the wheels in terms of direction, certainly in a lot of the camera movements and a lot of his signature styles as a director. They still had to cram so much random shit in there, like the Illuminati and so many other jokes, that it really did drown out and made the film feel like it was fighting itself with the tonal inconsistencies of the movie itself. And I feel like every single Phase 4 film has kind of felt that to some degree. I genuinely want them to do better with their content, genuinely just explore their characters in a way that feels unique and organic and fresh. Take the safety brakes off. Like, again, so many people have stuck around with this franchise for so many years that I think you can definitely take a darker route with some of these characters. Like, again, if you're gonna bring Punisher back, I don't want to see Punisher be Disneyfied. I don't want to see Daredevil Disneyfied. And I think, even though I had issues with She-Hulk, I don't hate it on the level as a lot of people did. I did respect the fact that Matt Murdock, although he was certainly a little bit lighter than he was in Netflix, was not like a complete joke fest throughout the tenure he had in that series. But still, like, if you're going to bring in a lot of darker characters, like Jessica Jones also is meant to appear in Daredevil, and other characters as well, I want them to genuinely take their time and really not be so afraid to let moments breathe and not have to break everything with a 5-second gag or some sort of one-liner that undercuts the tension of a scene. Again, I'm just spitballing on a camera, but I just want the MCU to do great again. I don't want everything about the MCU to be just vile and hate and just disdain and people being like, remember back when the MCU was good? I just feel like being an MCU fan nowadays feels unpopular, and it feels like you're in the minority, and it feels like everyone just wants to hate on it and it wants to fail, or people wanting to fail just because people like to see popular things fall from grace, because I don't know, I don't know why. But, you know, people are so, you know, quick to hate on things without really delving into, you know, what can be done better. And people are just, MCU is trash, and you try to talk to them about it, and people are just like, it's just trash because it's trash, right? And so there are people that do talk about it, certainly, but I feel like so many people just kind of like are just quick to hate on things. I don't know, it's just frustrating. And again, I wanted to go back to an era where every MCU project that comes out in the future, people genuinely have excitement for, and people genuinely can't wait to see what happens next. And that it's going to be hard, because I think Phase 4 definitely had a lot of damage to it, and I think it was the most integral phase to really pick people up since the Infinity Saga ended, and they really did a poor job of really audiences back in. I mean, there were certain projects that did do well, like WandaVision and Spider-Man and Black Panther, but I mean, so many projects that people just I knew people either skipped or just didn't watch any of Phase 4 because they were just like, it ended well with Endgame. And so I think it's going to be harder than ever to get audiences back in the fold. Like the people who have already dropped the MCU and left it behind, I think it is going to be hard to, you know, bring these audiences back in, because yes, they will. Sorry, I'm talking about about Marvel, but Marvel's gonna have a hard time really bringing the audiences that have been lost due to the Phase 4 failures to bring them back in, because there's still so many projects coming out that just I don't think people are just really gonna be interested in. But I do think the MCU will eventually get back to some sort of high. It's just about, will it take this year or will it take another 3 years? And it's gonna be frustrating because it's gonna take time, in my opinion. As a whole, I think this reality check for Marvel recently with Ant-Man and all that type of stuff, I think is a good sign in the overall structure of what Marvel Studios is doing right now, and realizing that they can't just pump out a show and a movie every single month, and realizing that they need to slow down, pump the brakes. But I think more than that, they just need to rewrite their scripts, or at least rework their characters in some sort of way, and just not be so afraid just to let their characters be serious for a moment and take a breath and really just explore these characters more. Because there are certain characters I just want to see explored in a good way, and feel like that I've grown up with the MCU again. Because right now it feels stagnant as terms of their tonal consistency. It feels like I'm like the old man, that I'm not growing up with the MCU, and these characters are still like the goofy, over-exaggerated versions that we've seen for years at this point. And even the versions we got in the Infinity Saga, they weren't cracking jokes every single 5 seconds. Tony Stark was allowed to be dark. Thor was allowed to be dark. You know, Captain America was allowed to be dark. But so many characters nowadays are either the butt end of a joke or just aren't allowed to be serious, and it's just like, I don't know. And especially with the dark characters like the Midnight Suns and everything, I want them to be a different face, and I want to have a mature side of the MCU that isn't already proven like Deadpool, to really broaden their audience and still be allowed to, like, as an adult, the ones that have stuck from the beginning, to feel like we still matter, to feel like we still belong in the MCU. And the fact that the MCU still feels like a place where you know the tonal diversity is still there. And I don't know, I might just be spitballing again. It's like 1:30 in the morning. I'm just literally just popping off whatever is coming into my head. But again, the MCU has still a lot of gas left in the tank, and I think they should use whatever they have left and the fan base they have left to really take their projects in a way that I think could rejuvenate the franchise and make audiences realize that Marvel still matters, and make people realize why they loved Marvel in the first place. But yeah, that's all I got for today's video. I know it was kind of chaotic and all over the place, but I don't know, I just want to get my thoughts out there, because I think it's an issue as a whole I don't really think Marvel's, or at least Marvel fans, are not really talking about as much. But I just kind of want to spitball it because why not? It's my channel. But hope you guys enjoyed my chaotic thoughts, and I guess I'll see you guys whenever I see you next. I realized I didn't even attempt to build this fucking set. I just placed these pieces here. I just talked bullshit for like 30 minutes, but you know what? Who cares? We had fun, hopefully, talking about random shit. But okay, I'm just at the end of the video now. Hope you guys have a great day or great night whenever you guys are, wherever you guys are watching this video, and I will see you whenever I see you next. Peace out.
Ocean man.